Hello, welcome to the channel. This is a review of Silo, Series 2, Episode 1. So the show's back on. You might have seen from some of my other content that I gave a recommendation to this series, both the books and the shows, and that is not going to change. Um, yeah, I really enjoyed the books. I have read them all, so be aware of that in case I let something slip. But I've also saw series one and enjoyed it quite a bit. And I actually renewed my Apple TV subscription just so I can see series two of this show. Um, so I've got a couple of months purchased, and I will be watching this show. So, all right, let's go with series two, episode one. So, just maybe to refresh people's memory, if you didn't re-watch the series one, but what we have here is, I guess they call them a post-apocalyptic series. Uh, it's basically starts off with showing this environment called the silo, um, where they all a group of people live. The silo is subdivided into levels. Your status is determined by the level you're on, and the lower your level, the lower your status, and the more looked down upon you are by the people above you. Um, which is kind of funny because actually the people who live further down are the people who actually do stuff, like keep everybody else alive because they're down in what's called mechanical section. Um, so in that, it's I thought originally that it was potentially a nuclear missile silo, and that's why they call it the silo, but it's not. It's more meant silo as in grain silo that you would see on a farm. Um, so that's the start of it. The main characters we see are the sheriff's department, so there is law enforcement um, in there to keep the peace. There's a mayor, elected mayor, and there's IT, who's headed by Bernard. He's gonna be the villain for most of or was the villain in series one, and probably continues to do so in series two. Um, Now, the difference from the books is judiciary, and that's where Common, he's a rapper that turned actor. He's not actually too bad. I've seen him in some other stuff, John Wick specifically, and he's not too bad as long as you don't give him anything too challenging. But that's kind of new to the TV series from the books. But I guess maybe they wanted to bring in more characters to have more interesting stories. Part of the reason I like the series, again, Graham Yost is the producer, writer, whatever, showrunner. Um, most of the stuff he does, I've enjoyed. Justified is another series that he was involved in, and I really enjoyed that. Um, but it's kind of there. If you want to determine if something's going to be good, and you look at the people producing it, and you can often find somebody that's good, um, and just follow their stuff, and you'll usually enjoy it. So Galen Hurd was one of the persons. She worked with John Cameron for a while and on the Alien series, True Lies, and a bunch of other stuff. So if you see something that she's involved in, it's usually good. Graham Yost is the same way. Um, you know, John Favreau on the first two seasons of The Mandalorian were good until he started to step away. So that was something that gave me a hint that this would be a good show. So, anyways, to take you back to series one, we have the sheriff, um, that's in charge, ultimately asking to go outside. If you remember, going outside is basically a death sentence um, because of the state of the world. Um, so if you ask to go outside, they have to let you go. If you're being punished severely, they put you outside, and you, as you saw in series one, you don't live. You die relatively quickly. So the original sheriff wants to go outside, um, mainly because his wife asked to go outside because she believed they were being lied to, and he can't stand not having her, so he goes, and unfortunately he dies because he went outside. They give you kind of a spacesuit to go outside in. Um, so he has to be replaced. There's a suggestion made that it should be this woman Juliet, who's down in mechanical. She was born to her parents are actually in medical, so they're much higher up. But because her mother was killed, and ultimately episode one of series two, this other character says she killed herself. We don't. They're down in mechanical at this time, and we don't sugarcoat stuff here. So there's a friction between father and daughter, and you see there's some interplay between Juliet and her father in the first series. But Juliet has a boyfriend, and unfortunately, because of population control, you can't just have relationships. It's kind of illegal. So they have a secret one, but he dies under suspicious circumstances, and she eventually relents because she wants to find out more about him. And then there's a whole structure of her getting involved and things aren't not as they seemed and not knowing who to trust. But the other thing that happens when she was in mechanical is she's they have mechanical and then they have supply who make stuff, and she stole some they call it heat tape, we'd call it duct tape, but she stole some duct tape to use, and she found that when she used it it fell apart. So she starts having the suspicion that there's something wrong with the tape. And why that's significant is because when you go outside, they, much like you'll see people uh, sealing seams. So they basically wrap the seams of the spacesuit that people go outside in this tape, and they have a whole ceremony bringing the tape in. So what what they kind of determine is they're using defective tape. So Bernard, the head of IT, who's kind of the villain in the series, ultimately he kills the mayor after um, they nominate Juliet to be the new sheriff. He's trying to get his own man in there, and that's part of the reason maybe that he kills the mayor. But uh, he finds out that Juliet was the person responsible or knows about his tape because he is having people wrapped up in this defective tape knowing that they're going to die. So he sets up circumstances where he can claim that she said she wanted to go outside even though she didn't. So, anyways, there's a whole starting to get people are not trusting Bernard and the silo, but it's the series kind of ends where Juliet's being put outside against her will. But she has a ally in this woman called Walker who's in repair. She happens to be have a phobia. She can't go outside, but she manages to like her domicile. But she does go out enough to get up to supply and get them to switch the tape. So they use their regular tape that they would use in mechanical, regular duct tape, and switch it for this heat tape that they use on the suits going outside. And Juliet goes outside. Part of the thing they have is a big view screen in the cafeteria so people can look outside, and it gets dirty, or it's gotten dirty over the years. So part of the thing they ask people to do going outside is to clean, and nobody's ever refused to do that, but Juliet basically does. And the end of series one, you see her walking over the hill. Now, she had been involved in, they found a hard drive with some video files that show, rather than the desolation you can kind of see here on the screen, birds flying in trees and all this other stuff. So when she's going outside and walking away from the entranceway to her silo, which is silo 18, um, the she sees the devastation that was what they looked at every day out of the lunchroom screen, and it turns to green grass and birds and all that stuff. And as she keeps moving, eventually it starts fading out, and it goes back to the actual devastation that she has witnessed for years out of the lunchroom um, screen. And why that's happening is that even though the helmet she puts on looks like a clear visor, it's not. It's a screen. So they're still controlling what she sees as she leaves. But eventually, she gets far enough away that uh, that's why the birds and the grass and everything disappeared, because they're not controlling the signal to her screen anymore. And like I said, that's the end of series one. Very well done. It doesn't encapsulate the first of the books series. There's 3 books in the series about this silo. First one's called Wool, because wool is what they use to clean the screen. Um, so the series one, or season one of the show, covers about maybe 90% of the book. Um, from what I can tell so far in season two, it's it starts off covering the territory that's in the remainder of book number one. So we'll see if they go into what's covered in book number two, which is a lot of the history of the silo and what's happened and who did what and all that stuff. All kind of stuff that would be very interesting, but might be relatively boring to show on TV. So, anyways, that is my recap, and then we'll move on to series one. So, um, series two, episode one. So in series two, episode one, you see it start off with a child with a torch, burning torch, not English name for a flashlight, running through the underground, and there's all kinds of people in the dark, and he hands a message off and um, to his father, which says the generator's going to be shut down, so they decide that they have to. Uh, Basically, a riot has broken out, and they are trying to get out of the silo. So you see the battle that ensures some of the walkway, the circular walkway that goes up the ring of the silo, is blown away to keep people from getting to a certain area. And there's a gunfight, and people die, and everything like that. So eventually, uh, that's the end of that sequence, and then it jumps to after, and you see the sort of the ringleader um, trying to figure out what's the next move, and ultimately him and his wife decide that he's going to lead people outside. Now, and that is because they don't believe the deaths that they have been seeing of people going outside previously. So he grabs a flag. Why he grabs a flag is beyond me. And leads people up the stairs. They manage to override the locks and get the door open. They go outside, and then it clicks to the present day, and you can see on the screen which the result is. So you can kind of see there's the flag that he was carrying out, all tattered and torn, and there's Juliet coming from silo 18. And this is no spoiler to tell you that she was from silo 18 and this is silo 17, because you'll find that out during the first few episodes of series 2. But she's crossed the each of the silos have like a burn or like a little mound encircling it. So she's crossed over hers and is walking in the space towards silo 17 and its burn, and she encounters nothing but bodies. So here she is. You can see the burns, and you can see ultimately from that. So it's not. I'm not going to be spoiling it by saying that there are 50 satellites. This is supposed to be Atlanta, apparently, in the background. But each one you can see the little gateway into the silos. But there are 50 of them. And she was in 18 and she's going to 17. Anyways, she walks over the burn and down towards the doorway into silo 17, and you see that door is jammed open with dead bodies, and there's a massive amounts of dead bodies that she has to walk over to get in. Um, so she does get into past the first doorway and down the stairway, which is cluttered with bodies, to the first set of doors, airlock doors, and they're open again, jammed open by bodies. They couldn't close them. So she's able to get through by kicking some of the bodies out of the way and close the doors, only to be met by the next airlock door, which makes no sense, but she's able to pry it open from the outside, which says to me it's not particularly a good door. But she does that. And um, at this point, it starts jumping back and forth between her past and the present in the new silo 17. So you see in her past, where she first goes down into mechanical and meets the people there. She meets Walker and starts working with Walker in the repair shop. And then a woman that's her friend, she hooks up with her the first time. And they also show them down, eventually jumping back and forth. So, what Juliet's doing at this point is she's into the new area, gets the doors shut, and then she starts running out of oxygen in her suit, so she smashes the screen, smashes a hole in the screen of a helmet so she can get oxygen. Now, then she ends up cutting open her suit to get out of it, so it's kind of like, well, why didn't you do that in the first place? That's been a lot easier than what she goes through to smash the screen. But, anyways, she does some other stuff that's kind of weird, but whatever. I don't know any better. But she does start exploring the silo, so it jumps back and forth between her jumping through or exploring the silo and her as a youngster in silo 18. So you get a little bit of background. You see at one point she's down in the bowels of 18 with her new friend, and they see all these names in the walls, which are actually significant in episode 3 or 4, or there's an understanding of what they're explained what they mean um, in that. But anyways, Jules, as they call her instead of Juliet, from Romeo and Juliet, because they keep saying the play. Yes, the play. You get it sort of drags a bit because she's, unless you're interested in watching her make things, because she gets down to a certain point, she finds the farm, gets some water, so she's able to survive that way. But she sees another area that seems to have a lot more lights because everything is very dark in silo 17 because it's really just emergency lighting. And she tries to figure out how she's going to get across the gap, and she sees some bodies hanging on from the level above. So she goes back up and pulls them over, and they're security people that have been hung. So she takes a bunch of the ropes and strings them together and then fastens them to the railing and throws them over the edge. And now she shimmies down the rope and she's swinging back and forth like a kid swing to try to get across the gap. But as she's doing it, the rope lets go. So she hits the platform but can't hold on and lands in water. So then she goes through the whole process of having to get dry clothes and everything else and comes back up. And the rope at that point looks like it's been cut. So now she's a little bit more concerned of what's going on, but she goes through the same process of this time building a better little ramp to get across the gap to get to this area where there's more light. Because she can hear something going tick, 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 some noise, but nobody answers when she calls out. So she gets her little bridge built, just makes it across, and it collapses again. But she manages to hold on this time, and she finds that the noise is actually a fan that's running, and it's a card key on a lanyard that's banging against the fan. So nobody at this point. But exploring a little bit further, she finally hears a noise, and it's actually music. So she follows the music, goes through a couple more doors, and then gets to a big vault door, which she can't open, but it's got a keypad. So she's turning to leave, and suddenly she hears a slide being pulled back, and there's a set of eyes in this window in the vault, and it's somebody else. So he tells her that if she tries to open the door, he's going to kill her, and that is the end of the episode. So, um, yeah, it's a decent enough episode. It's progressing the story, and that's what good episodes should do. They should have a story to tell, which is mostly coming from the books, and then through a series, you want to move forward towards telling the story. So there'll be a seasons 2 story that they want to deliver. So they have to move forward doing that. So we learn about Silo 17. We learn about people. The reason that all these dead people are there is they didn't believe the people in running Silo 17 and wanted to go out and were all dead or all died because of it, which is basically what happened at Silo 18, but only individuals were going out. And we find out that Silo 17 is the new Silo is not is totally fallen apart because of course it's been a number of years potentially, because you see the flag, it goes from pristine when they run up the ramp with it to in fairly rough shape. And all the skeletons are or bodies are skeletons, so that does show some passing of time. So you see, it's been a while since 17, and actually later on in the episodes that I've seen, Bernard realizes that she's gone to 17. He actually sees, he gets to see the the view out of her visor when she's going to 17, and he comments that that silo's been dead for years, which would be backed up by the skeletons and the ratty flag. But we see, so what we learn through the flashbacks is more about Jules and how she got down into mechanical, and how she started building relationships with people down there. And we see that she's a resourceful person because she's been able to build a bridge and figure out how to get across, and that kind of stuff. And we also find out that there is somebody, at least one. That's all we've seen so far, and I've actually watched up to episode 3. But I'll be watching 4 shortly. But there's at least one person, the guy behind the vault with the slidey door, but who cut the rope. Don't think it's him, but that could mean there's more people there. Um, we see that the Silo 17 is a lot of water, has groundwater has come in, and because there's nobody mechanical manning the pumps, because they do mention previously in series 1 that there's a problem with groundwater in Silo 18 as well that has to be managed. So we do find out that there potentially is somebody in 17 that knows what's going on in 17. And that's the episode 1 entry. So we got movement forward with finding out a bit more of what's going on. Also seeing the reaction of people in Silo 18 to Jules leaving and not coming back. So you're starting to see maybe the seeds of what went through Silo 17 and Bernard's attempt to put it back. And as we progress through the next few episodes, you'll see it gets more and more serious, and Bernard gets more and more desperate to keep everything under wraps. He doesn't explain why, but that's what it is. We also learn there's 50 silos. I knew that from the books. Um, and that's about it. So well acted. My main complaint about it is, God damn it, is somebody turn on a flashlight or something. It's very dark in the even Silo 18 in large portions of it. You can't see what's going on. Get so bloody dark. Now you can see on the screen, this is the upper level of 18, and this is back at Bernard, and you can see that the lighting is good, but as you go lower, the lighting gets worse and worse. And of course, when Julia's in the ruined Silo 17, the lighting is shit, so you can barely see when she's hauling the bodies up to get the rope to try to swing across the gap. You can barely get any. I mean, they're corpses, so whatever. But you don't really see a lot of detail. You don't see a lot of detail of the room she's walking through when she's scavenging for supplies and stuff like that. So that the lighting is the most annoying thing. The acting's good. The story is good. It is still more or less following the books. Maybe not exactly, but pretty darn close. Or the first book. So yeah, I recommend this. It's good. It's interesting. I think you enjoy it if you pick up watching the series. If you haven't seen series one or season one, then go back and watch it. You'll get a bit more on Jules and what's going on. But yeah, episode one is good. Uh, I I enjoyed it. So I'll have a um, yes. This is Jules, and that's her father. That's common. He's part of the judiciary. There's Jules trying to get across the gap and goes down into the water. This covers a lot more of than what we've seen so far in the episodes, but yeah, it's just I'm just letting a trailer uh, go. But ultimately, and there's Bernard looking through her screen to see her seeing 17. So that's it. I recommend this show. It's good. If you like reading books instead, I recommend the books. I do have a short video on my recommendation of the Silo book series and the TV show that I've seen so far. Another video on this channel, but yeah, this is season 2, episode 1.